Good morning and welcome back to the channel. I want to thank you guys all for being here on today's video. Now today we're going to try to make a sheath for my ESEE-3. This knife is actually pretty special to me. This is the knife that got me into leather working. I bought that knife quite a few years ago and I wanted to make a sheath for it. And so that's my very first leather project, and this is just a rough piece of art. I got my stitches coming out because I didn't backstitch, all kinds of crazy stuff. Uneven edges because I didn't think to sand it or carve them down. I didn't even burnish the edges, so they're just rough cut. This sheath means a lot to me and I like it a lot, but I'm not gonna carry it anymore. So we need to make a new sheath for the old ESEE-3. This is a great bushcrafting knife and I really enjoy carrying it around in the woods, whether I'm just out looking for mushrooms or I'm bow hunting. Enough jibber jabber, let's get after it. Let's build a knife sheath. Alright, first thing you want to do is just fold your paper over in half, just like that. And we'll set our knife on the paper with the back up against the crease of the paper, and we'll just go ahead and trace around that so we know exactly what our knife looks like. Now don't worry guys, this is not the sheath right there. This is just showing us what the knife looks like. And that kind of gives us an idea of where we need to start. Now we're going to start designing the actual sheath. So we want to make sure we give ourselves enough room for a welt. Now what the welt is, basically just part of the sheath that is going to be a little bit thicker where the blade slides in. That way you don't end up cutting your stitching and creating a big headache down the road. Now on my wall here, on this one, you can actually see I actually did use a welt on this, and you can see it sticking up there. Basically it's just a thin piece of leather that's going to run the whole length of this outside edge where the blade will go, and that's just going to protect your stitching from getting cut by your actual blade. So that's your welt. We need to make sure there's room for that. I like to give myself about half an inch. Depending on your design, you can make this welt a little bit smaller, depending on what kind of knife sheath you're going to make. You don't want to make it too big to where the knife will slide in and out. We are going to do a button snap on this sheath, I believe, so it's not going to be a big deal if it's way too big. But that being said, I think a half inch will do just fine. And we'll just trace that out and get those dots connected, and that's going to help us know where to go. This is where you can have some fun and really start to just play with your design and figure out what you want it to look like. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to have basically the blade covered. It's going to come up with a belt strap up above with a button snap around the side, so it's just kind of your classic knife sheath look. Alright guys, so there's our basic shape that I'm going for. This is going to be kind of an interesting look, but I'm excited to try it out. So my thought is I'm going to have it sit in there like this, and then we'll have a button snap come across to this point, and then we'll have room for our belt loop back here. I love making knife sheaths because you can really play around with the design and get something that you like. The cool thing is I'm not making this knife sheath for anybody else. This is going to be for me, so I can really play around with the design. And honestly, if it doesn't work, that's okay. We're just having an experiment here, and I think we're ready. That would have been cool. I think we're ready to go ahead and start cutting it out on leather. So what I've got is about a 3 to 4 ounce veg tan natural. I've also got this nice chrome tan here. This is just about a 2.5 to 3 ounce, I believe. I'm going to use that as a liner and then use this as the main body, and then we're going to stain this veg tan, and I think we're actually going to stain this as well. I don't recommend staining chrome tan, but it still works. So I'm going to go ahead and stain it just to match up the colors closer. This is just going to be on the inside of the sheath, so honestly if this just gets really dark, that's fine, as long as it's not a big contrast with this orangish color to the brown. I'm thinking about doing like a light brown with maybe kind of a rustic look. I'm thinking I'm gonna leave streaks in the stain. That way it kind of looks like it's really oily leather, or maybe got some type of good take up in it. So anyways, let's go ahead and get cutting the leather out with our pattern. Alright guys, so I'm about to cut out the liner. Now when you're doing this, you want to make sure you flip your pattern over. This is just one of those quick tips for you. Flip your pattern over, that way they match. I've done that before. I've cut out my main body sheath, and then I went to cut out my liner and cut them both out on the same side, and then turns out they don't fit very well. So flip your pattern over. Guys, so I was looking at this pattern here, and I've got it all cut out, and I like it, but I just don't like this piece here for the belt strap. So I think what I'm gonna do is actually cut this right here, just like that, all the way around, match it, have my button snap, and then we'll just put our belt loop down lower. And what that's gonna do is that's gonna ride this knife up higher on our waist, and that's gonna help keep it out of the way when we're sitting and whatnot. I do a lot of sitting here in the shop, so honestly, this is probably gonna be my shop knife, and I think what I'll do is cut that across there, have our button snap, and then have our belt loop down lower. I think that'll look really nice. We've got everything cut out. We've got our main body, we've got our liner, we've got our belt strap, got our button snap strap, and we got our welt. So before we glue this all together, we need to make sure we stitch our strap on first before we glue the liner on. And why that is because we don't want to have your stitches where the knife blade can actually cut them. That being said, we need to go ahead and die all of our pieces, get them all ready to be glued. That way we can glue and stitch this piece on, and then we'll just kind of put it together from there. We'll go ahead and put our liner on, and then our welt, and so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and get all this dyed up real quick. Alright guys, I got my dye. I'm gonna go ahead and put some gloves on. I got my workbench cleared up. That way I can get dye just everywhere. Now I'm gonna be using a dauber today. It seems to work pretty well. You can also use just a foam brush, or even if you have a sponge, that would work great. Or a rag. Any of those will work just fine. I'm gonna leave some streaks because I'm gonna try and do like a rustic look with the dye. And then on the edges, I'm gonna go super heavy so it's dark, so it'll kind of fade from dark to lighter brown, more in the middle. I don't know, we'll see how it turns out. You're going along with the ride just like me. I'm not really sure how this is gonna go, but let's give it a whirl. And you can kind of let it dry the first coat with those really aggressive streaks, and that'll kind of help give it a little more texture later down the road. What we want to do now is just mark where our button strap is going to go, and then also where our belt loop is going to go. That way we can get those stitched in first before we glue the liner to the main body. So I'm going to do that real quick here. Alright guys, here's a quick tip. Before you glue and stitch this to the body of your project, make sure you burnish these edges. Get them nice and smooth before you stitch it down. It's going to make your life a lot easier. I went ahead and put the button snaps in as well. That way the back of the button will be covered by our liner and it won't scratch up the handle of the knife. So if you want to know more about button snaps, check out the video. I'll put a link in the up top, I guess, where across the thing, up somewhere. So we're gonna go ahead and leave this piece of granite on top of our project just to let the glue harden up. Now this is important when you're using a liner, that way when you fold it you don't peel that liner apart, because the liner is gonna wanna stretch around, the main project is gonna wanna stretch around the liner. And it's gonna appear that you got more material for your liner, which is okay. We can trim some of that off after the glue is hardened and we fold it and mold it to the shape we need. Hopefully the knife fits. That would be greatly appreciated. That'd be greatly, I would enjoy it. Alright guys, so we're ready to stitch. We got the edges ready to stitch. They're not burnished, but they are prepped. So pretty much after we stitch, we'll probably go back, clean it up just a little bit more. A lot of times when you stitch, it'll kind of mushroom the edges out. So I like to go back with the final sand at the end after stitching before I burnish. But they are ready to stitch, so let's get to stitching. This will be a nice little sheet that I can wear pretty much every day, whether I'm in the shop or heading out in the woods. So this will be a sweet sheet. It's nice and minimal, nice and small, which I like. I like to have a nice thin carry, that way it doesn't get in the way. I guess the most important thing with the knife sheath is it going to fit on the belt? So let's get the old apron off and let's check it out. Alright, there she is. Fits like a charm. Works really well. Slides in and out nicely. Nice concealment if I do want to hide it. It's nice and high on the waist, which I like. The body of the knife is up higher, and that keeps it out of the way when I'm sitting, which I really like. So there she is. That's the ESEE-3, and that's the knife sheath I made for it. So, alright guys, there it is. It's super sweet. I like the way it turned out. I think it was a good build. Thank you guys so much for following along. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you guys try to make your own knife sheath or any leather project. And if you do, don't forget to show us, because I am very interested in what you guys are doing and the leather work that you guys are working on. So find us on Instagram, Shatterproof Leather, and you can share your pictures over there to me. Just send them in a DM or just tag us, and I'd love to see them and see how you guys are doing and see what your guys' projects look like. It means a lot to me when you guys do that. So other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'm going to go put my knife sheath on and maybe go out in the woods and chop something. I don't know. If you guys want to see another knife sheath video, let me know in the comments what kind of knife you guys want to see. I actually have quite a few knives. I might have a knife problem. But if I have that knife and you guys want me to try it out, let me know, and we'll get to building another sheath. So we'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm for you. Remember to stitch straight and stay shatterproof. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Alright guys, I want to take a minute real quick and just show you guys some things that I learned on this build, because I know you may think that it's super easy for me or I've got it all figured out, which is not the case. I learned stuff on every single build, and that's one reason I love leatherworking, because there's always something to learn. And today I learned quite a few things, so let me share those with you real quick, so hopefully you don't make the mistake, or if you do make the mistake, maybe you'll know how to fix it. Alright guys, the first thing I learned on this was you can see that these stitches here are really close to the stitches that hold my liner, and I stitched my strap on first, that way the stitches wouldn't show in the liner. But if you guys look at this, inside there you can actually see my stitches for the strap, because what happened was I ended up having to cut this strap off in order to stitch my liner because it was too close and I didn't have enough room to pull it back and stitch my liner. So just keep that in consideration. Maybe one thing I thought of we could do is extend this kind of piece here out and make it wider. That way I have more room for a strap and the stitching. Or just maybe do 2 stitches like I did on the belt loop instead of making that square. So that's the first thing that I learned on this build. Alright, the other thing I learned is on the button snap. On the inside button, it is so close to the edge, so when I started to stitch my liner in, my sewing machine had a hard time climbing over the button snap, which we do want the button snap on the inside, that way it doesn't scratch the knife and the liner protects it. But what I was thinking we could do is it goes right along with the strap, is extend this piece out a little bit, and what that's probably going to help us do is just give us enough room to have that button far enough back that we can stitch evenly without having to run the machine over the top of that button. Now if you're hand stitching, that's not going to be a problem, but if you are using a machine, it kind of gave me a couple headaches and my stitching doesn't look real great there. So that's something I learned as well. So I hope you guys can take from my mistakes and hopefully you don't do them. Now if you do, you know, just keep trying, stay shatterproof, and you'll get it figured out. You guys have a wonderful day.